Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sustainability Network. I'm Shruti Harihara Subramanian, and I'm the founder of golisodastore.com. As you know, the last few weeks we've been meeting some exciting brands and their founders and getting to know so much about them. And today we are actually meeting a sustainable brand who's not exactly your typical brands that you come across. We are actually meeting an illustrator. Her name is Shubashree, and she's better known as the Hungry Palette. So, what's an illustrator doing in Goli Soda? So, Subhashri has brought out these very interesting books for children called Let's Talk Trash. And as the name suggests, these are books that educates children about the kind of garbage that we produce and how to take care of our planet better. So we at Goli Soda, we really felt that having books like these and to educate our future generation was as important as selling any other sustainable product. So I'm really looking forward to meeting Shubhashree because she's very passionate about this subject and she conducts lots of workshops to again create awareness around this concept of sustainability. So for those of you who are watching the Sustainability Network for the first time, we have so far met over 13 brands before this, and you can catch our conversations on our IGTV or Goli Soda's YouTube page, and we are on podcasts as well. So if you're going for a walk, exercising or cooking, I hope our conversations will entertain you. We are hoping today would be the last of this edition of Sustainability Network, and we'll be back soon with some more interesting people and their brands, and we are even looking forward to meeting people who just lead a sustainable life and educate us about that. They might be just simple people like you and me, but they are making a huge difference to the planet. So we are hoping to make this series a lot more interesting. We look forward to your comments, your feedback, and we hope to expand the series a lot more. As before I invite Shubhashree, you're welcome to ask any questions with regards to sustainability, her books, the workshops she does, or anything, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. So let me welcome Shubhashree to the Sustainability Network. We're almost there, connecting. Yes. Hi, Shubhashree.
Hi, Suti. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good too, thanks.
Nice to finally meet you. I think you've also contributed to our blog a couple of times, and
Yes.
we've only exchanged emails, but we've never met each other. So this is a good opportunity for us to meet each
Yeah,
other.
yeah, same here. And thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure, and welcome to the Sustainability Network. So let's start from the beginning. So you're primarily an illustrator, right? What's
Yeah,
your
well,
journey?
primarily an engineer. Like I say,
Okay.
everybody from Bangalore by default, we are born engineers. Well, yeah. So then work as well, a little over a decade in IT, and then found my way to, illustration and writing. Yeah.
Okay. So how did the whole idea to do Let's Talk
It
Trash
is a bit of a
come
lag, I
about?
think. Um, So it started off more as a personal project. So I had been reading up about sustainability and the whole zero waste movement, where people holding up those little jars of trash and saying this is all the trash
Yeah.
that I generated in 2 years. I was really curious when I read that, and I was wondering how people do it, and then I started reading up about it. And then, the more I read about it and the more I read about these bulk buy stores opening up in the West, in the UK and in the US, I thought, hold on, this sounds really familiar. This is the kind of source that we used to go to when we were kids.
Yes.
Take those
Yes.
Horlicks bottles and Bonvita bottles and go buy oil
Yes.
in that, right? And
Yes.
everything is making a comeback. Like yoga became
Or they
popular
would
when
wrap
this
the food in the pulses or
paper.
rice in paper, and then they used to have this jute twine hung in the
Yes,
ceiling to
yes,
just
yes, yes, yeah.
wrap it. Yeah, and then they
Yes,
used to just pull it
exactly.
off and it would be cut. Yeah,
And tie
yeah.
it and right, yeah. So
Yeah.
when I was reading about all of that, yeah, I began to think of that, and I just thought I should make a small illustrated project on that. And yeah, that's how it started. Yep.
So tell us about the books. I think we are we stock at Goli Soda two books. Is it true?
Yes, two books.
The
Yes.
illustrated version and
Yeah.
the story. Can
So
you
this is
talk us
one.
through that? Yeah.
Yeah. So is it all showing up reversed? Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, this is a small handbook. This is the first book that I made, which essentially I talk about how it was growing up in the 80s. My age is showing, but yeah. So here, like I said, we had these tape recorders and then these computers with
Yeah.
the CRTs and landlines and all of that,
Yeah.
which I'm sure the cool millennial kids are probably wondering what it is. But yeah, and when it came to technology, this is what it was like. But this is how it was when, yeah, like going to the stores with bottles, and then my dad
Mm.
going to get wholesale groceries. He would come back with these big sacks of rice and
Yeah.
dal and all of that. We would put neem leaves and store it. So yeah, this
Yeah.
book I basically talk about how it was growing up and how things have changed, and then I just talk about some simple tips that we can use to reduce the amount of waste that we are creating in our everyday lives and throwing out. So in the bathroom or in the kitchen, what are some things we can do? So this is the first book. And then a few months after that, my daughter was really getting interested when I was doing this book. And then I got the idea of doing an activity book for kids. So then
So
this
how
was
old was
born.
she then?
She was 3, yeah. This was a couple of years back, so she was, yeah, 3 years old. Yes. So
Okay.
yeah, so that's when I came up with the idea of the activity book. So there's this glossary section which explains some basic terms, and then there are
Okay.
activities and sorry, everything is flipped, but yeah, some simple games and activities to introduce the concepts of what is recycling, or how does food get to our plates. So just to get kids thinking about it. I don't want to be very in your face and say don't do this and don't do that, but just yeah, through the idea of games
But
and activities.
I must say the activity books is a great gifting idea, because every time I need to gift something for these kids, my friends' kids, I'm always looking out for something sustainable or something to educate them about sustainability. I'm probably the only auntie who, like if I give gifts, somebody actually said, "Oh, Shruti auntie, she'll only give eco-friendly gifts. Don't worry." So but this was one book that really got some of the kids I've gifted quite excited. So I've had my friends taking pictures and showing me how engrossed their son was
Oh, that's
while
really
doing this
nice.
activity.
I'm
So
glad. Thank
what
you.
is so I mean, as I tell people, I don't have things at Goli Soda if I don't use it or make somebody I know use it. So obviously it was a good product, and that's why we have it at our store.
Thank you. Thank
So
you so much.
typically, what age group interests these books? I mean, what is it?
So I have tried to keep a mix because I know that, every household, I mean, a lot of households have mixed age kids. So this is between 5 and 10 is what I would say. And there are some games which are quite fun for adults too, like the word finder. I've had people, just sitting and trying to figure out, let me just pull that up. But yeah, I would say roughly 5 to 10 is, yeah.
For the
So stuff
activity,
like
what about
this,
the other book?
yeah. The other book is for adults as well, adults and slightly older kids who are able to read and understand. Yeah, this is,
Okay.
like all ages, I would say. Yeah.
So, but what would be the starting age for a child?
Maybe 10 years old. Yeah, 8 or 10 should be
Okay.
okay. I think. Yeah. Anybody who's
Could
able to
you
understand concepts. Yeah.
could you read a few pages of the book, please?
Okay, sure.
Something to give
Yeah.
them know. Since anyway it's for adults as well. So
Okay. So should I? Okay, I'll just read, right? I don't need to hold it up.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll just read the beginning parts. So an 80s kid growing up in Bangalore, India. We got our first telephone when I was 15. We had a film camera, and not just because of the hipster quotient. We had a tape recorder and cassette tapes, and I got my first computer in 2002, and we had floppy disks which had a mind-blowing capacity of 1.44 MB. Do you remember that? So yeah, when it came to technology, we were a bit like dinosaurs, but it wasn't all too bad. I got to go to school on an elephant. I'm obviously kidding about that, but but here are some other things that I recall. I would go to a milk booth carrying, a can
Yeah.
where you would press a button
Yeah.
and then that milk would come out.
Button. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and for me, that was like the height of technology. I used to be really wowed by it.
Yeah. And who's going to press the button? I think that was the fun part.
Yeah, yeah, and the milk would come out cold from those overhead tanks, right? So,
And I was always curious, where did it all come from? It was like
come,
magic out of nowhere. It just came out.
there Yeah. And I recall my father going to the wholesale markets once every few months to buy staples with a long list of things. And he would return in a hired tempo or a van carrying, sacks of groceries. And we would store them in large bins with dried neem leaves to keep bugs away. And I also remember going to buy oil from these specific shops. Again, I would carry a bottle from home. You remember these typical shops, right?
Yeah.
There would be tins
Yeah.
and tins of oil, and then there would be
Yeah.
drums as well. And you would take a ladle and pour it into your bottle. And all containers would be repurposed Horlicks, Bonvita bottles, washed and reused until they probably broke. And I'm sure some of those bottles are still being used by my mom back home. Yeah, they are at least 40, 50 years old, I'm sure. And steel plates is something we grew up
Yeah.
with. My sisters and I had plates with our names etched on them. Again, this is a classic 80s thing, I think. You buy a steel
Yeah.
plate and they would etch your name on it and give it to you. And these plates are still being used at my parents' place. In fact, every time I go back to Bangalore, we eat from the same plate, a plate which has my name on it. So, yeah, my mother was so used to cooking frugally that we barely had leftovers. And even if we did, we didn't put them in the fridge. We would just try and finish them up the next morning. Or if there was leftover rice, my mother would add water to it and then leave it overnight and the next morning. So for the longest time, I did not do this when I grew up and started living on my own. I did not do this
Yeah.
because I was too cool or whatever. But the last few years, I have started doing that again because I also know that there are reasons beyond, just not wasting food. There is that fermentation that goes on and
Yeah.
it adds more nutrients and all of that. Yeah. But yeah, what would happen is I would put food into the fridge, and then maybe 2 or 3 days later I would remember that it's there, and then I would pick it up and throw it out. So there's wasted food and wasted electricity. So yeah. So yeah, because of a combination of several things, which is one is a frugal lifestyle, and there was a culture of low consumption, and living in a developing country, I suppose, we were naturally creating way less trash, and there were no garbage
Yeah.
bags being sold in the 80s.
Yeah. Interesting. So definitely, I think this is something even adults would enjoy because it's so nostalgic to read these things and look back at our lives. And it's
Yeah,
a good reminder even for us to say, hey, if you could do it then, why can't you do it now?
yeah,
So I
yeah,
think this book is great. And of course, for kids, it's going to be like a fantasy Lala story, but it's going to be something that, okay, we all okay, our moms or our grandmoms did it, maybe we should try it too. I mean, I think it's very, very interesting to read. And as you said, I think it'll work well for kids and adults as well. So,
Yeah.
just curious, so how much of what is written in this book do you follow at home? I know you just told me about the whole rice, putting water and having it nowadays, not keeping it in the fridge, but anything else
Yeah.
that you follow, whatever you've written in this book?
Generally, when it comes to um, yeah, trying to, I mean, over the years, I have sort of tried to cut down on things that I buy prepackaged, whether it is takeaway food or groceries to some extent. Groceries can be hard, and but wherever possible, where people are ready to give you groceries in your own container or even
Use.
packed food in
Yeah.
your container. So things like that, that is one. Uh, yeah, I switched to a menstrual cup couple of years back, and I think it's one of the biggest changes that I've made.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. And in fact, my whole journey of trying to be sustainable started when I was looking for diaper alternatives when my daughter was born. So I discovered cloth
Mm.
diapers, and then I started reading up about menstrual cups. And then, I went deeper and deeper into sustainability, and sort of that's how my education began. Yeah. So,
So we all, I think, have a personal story like that. I think a personal need arises, and then we'll end up doing all the research to, have all the knowledge to implement sustainability in some ways in our life. And
yeah.
I also believe to be sustainable, it's you need to, I mean, the knowledge that you require, you will never come out one day and say, I know it all. Each day you
No.
keep learning something new,
Yeah.
especially in the kind of lifestyle that we live now. Uh, as you said, to even source wholesale groceries or things like that. I think for most people, things like that is the most difficult thing. So I guess if more people understand it and create the need for such stores or create a community like that, I think it'll be far more easier for all of us to lead a sustainable life. And I think
Yeah.
education plays a key role in it. And I think what you're doing, whether it's educating the next generation, and we'll come to that about your workshops. I think to lead a sustainable life, education plays a huge role because people like you and I have spent a lot of time reading up, meeting people, understanding it. So I think workshops and things like that give people faster access to this knowledge. So why don't you talk to us about, tell us about your whole workshops that you do on sustainability?
Yeah. So, the workshops I again do because one, it's a great way to meet like-minded people, and nothing beats that interaction. And secondly, yeah, like you said, it's a very quick way to sort of get that information. Again, I talk about my journey, and I also talk about simple changes that we can do. And if we're living in an apartment, what are some of the things we can do? If you're living in an individual house, maybe what are some of the things we can do? And in your kitchen and your bathroom, what are some simple steps that we can take to try and reduce the amount of waste that we're all creating? I always say that I remember a couple of years back when we were looking for an apartment to rent in Hyderabad. One of the places that we looked at, we went in, and the living room was just completely strewn with packaging waste and all of that. It just felt like the tenants had left in a big hurry. Um, so the reason I go back to that is sometimes I feel like this is how we're leaving our planet. It's like we're saying, we are
Yeah.
done here. It's your headache now. You take care of it. So that's, I think, part of the reason. Yeah, why I think we need to act now before our time is up, and then it's the next generation's headache. It's time we did something about it.
So who do you conduct these workshops for? Are they corporate schools or just
Um,
communities?
Yeah, basically anyone who's wants to attend. I have done something at a school. I also do some more hands-on activity-based workshops for kids. wherein, again, it's very game based. They will either learn what is we will do waste segregation, or something more like, say, if I ask you to organize a small birthday party for 6 kids, and I ask you what options will you have on the menu so that the least amount of trash gets thrown out. So things like that. So for kids, I have a slightly different format where it's more a game base, and for adults it's more of a talk format. So yeah, corporate schools, anyone who's interested. Yeah.
So how is it to work with children with the workshops? You think they are far more open, or all these seem completely new to them? What has the reaction been? And could you just tell us one experience where you felt that these workshops have actually made a huge impact on, say, this child or this community or something like that?
Okay. So, yeah, kids, I think it's amazing how much they absorb, and how much they're able to teach you, honestly. Because I still remember in Bangalore, there was one workshop that I conducted. I think this was my first or second one that I did. And there were a couple of kids who were talking nonstop through the workshop. That was one learning for me. But there was one of them, everything that I would say, this kid would say, yeah, I already know, and then add something to it. That was quite fantastic. And this kid was telling me, oh, my mom and I make bioenzymes at home. And my jaw just
Wow.
dropped. Like, this kid is probably
Wow.
6 or 7. And to hear a kid say that was just fantastic. I think that was probably one of the most memorable workshop experiences that I've had. And it just goes to show you that the kids will pick up whatever they see around themselves, right? So and they're very quick to spot hypocrisy, as in, you tell them to do something and then you don't do it, you're going to get called up for
Yeah.
it, right? So yeah, I think you don't have to teach them anything. You just do things the way you're supposed to do it, and then they will just pick it up. Yeah.
But okay, I had a question and I almost forgot what it was. This never happened to me. Yes, but what I wanted to say was working with kids, like even in Goli Soda, we do a lot of workshops, or we have kids come over for just to see the kind of products or what upcycling is, or things like that, the alternates to your regular products that you can use. So you don't really have to use uh, plastic toothbrush. You can use a bamboo toothbrush. So, but I have always found it difficult to communicate with kids. I think that requires a special talent. However much they are very receptive to it, but there is a way to communicate with them. So I find it easier to talk to adults and tell them straight. I mean, whether they accept the whole thing or not, I find it easier to talk to adults. But how about you? I know you're a mother. As you said, one of your kids from the workshop said, I do this with my mom. So what kind of sustainable activities happen with your kids' daughter at home? Something maybe other parents can try to do it at home as well.
So now, of course, things are slightly different. We spend most of our time indoors, but one of the things we would try and do is, go a lot for walks around our apartment, and, just pick up stuff and come back home and make stuff with it. It can be dried leaves, or just pebbles or whatever, and then come back and do stuff with it. It's a great talking point with kids, even just things like, we go for a walk and say, today let's count the number of different colored flowers we see on this side of the apartment, things like that. So just bringing nature in a lot into our play. There was this other time where we just made, like a sort of a dream catcher. I took 2 sheets of butter paper and then, put dried petals into it, and we stuck it and then we hung it up. So stuff like that doesn't cost much, and it can keep the kids engaged for so long. And yeah, you communicate and you connect so much. The kids connect with nature as well. Yeah, things like that.
Nice. So, any other ideas for books, or do you plan to diversify on something else with connected to sustainability?
Um, I'm still learning, honestly, and I've just been reading up a lot lately. There is another book in the pipeline, uh, but that's going to take a while. But yeah, there's just so much, so much, so much. Like you said earlier, once you start reading up about it, there's absolutely no end to it. That's what it feels like.
Yes.
And yeah, it's also quite inspiring to try and put those learnings again into some format to share it with everyone else. So yeah, let's see what happens. I'm open to
Okay,
the idea.
congrats
Yeah.
for that. Good luck. We hope
Thank
to have
you.
that soon at Goli Soda as well.
Yes.
So we'll keep our fingers crossed. So
Right.
let's come back to the books. Uh, Typically, tell our viewers how much would each book cost,
Mhm.
and some might want to even know what kind of paper it's printed on, because this whole series is about sustainability. So could you just talk
Right.
about that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the small book is priced at 150, and this one is at 230. Um, these are printed on regular paper. I haven't gone in
Mm.
for recycled paper, or the covers have some amount of recycled material in that. Because I'm again still learning about the recycled paper industry, and I from what I have learned, it doesn't seem like the best option for me right now. So yeah, again, learning. Yeah.
That's great.
And
So,
what I again, sorry.
no, please continue,
Yeah, yeah.
continue.
No, I also encourage people, like, so at the back of the book I've written, I encourage people to use pencil and then do all the activities and then just erase it and then pass it on to the next kid who will probably like it, because after all, we're talking about consuming lesser and, not buying something unless absolutely needed. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. So, coming back to a question that I usually ask most of our guests. You just told me, of course, the kind of walks that you're now doing with your kid has come down because of the lockdown. But in general, there's a question I'm asking most of our guests. All of us are going through a certain kind of internal journey right now because of this whole COVID-19, the lockdown. In fact, this series we are doing because we feel that maybe people have sort of have gotten up, they're awake right now to understand what's really happening around the world, the kind of difference one can do by, consuming less and things like that. So each one is going through a different process right now, and that's why we felt we need to have these conversations so that whoever's probably thinking of making some sort of sustainable shift, these conversations would probably give them the confidence to take the shift. So I want to know what is going on, or what went through your mind when this whole lockdown happened, and how are you making use of this time, and basically what's going inside that head of yours.
Yeah, yeah. So that question has been, yeah, foremost on everybody's minds as well, I think, right?
Yeah.
For me, I think right from the time the whole lockdown started, I think the first thought I had was, like, now is the time where, in all aspects of life, we are probably just going to focus on what is essential, and what is non-essential will, just sort of fall by the way. Whether it is the things that we shop for, or even the sort of work that we take on, because the kids are at home and we're all working at home. Everybody's at home, so our energy is limited, our patience is
Yes.
limited, uh,
Yes.
but we have to survive, basically, right? So it just becomes all about that. So what is not essential just gets trimmed away. And for a lot of us also, I mean, everybody talks about the air being cleaner, and all of that, right? So I'm just hoping that this, I mean, even though there is so much bad news outside, there are small positives that will emerge from this. and whether it's community coming together and things like that. That hopefully we will come out of this without too much damage. That's all. Yeah. How about you?
So, oh, for me, it's been this series is one such thing. It all happened because of these many thoughts that were going. I can go on and on about it. One, of course, yes, the shock about running a business on the professional side, because so many people are dependent on us, the people who work for us, how to sustain
Yeah.
them, sustain an income to support them. Many of them were dependent on the salaries coming out of our company to support their families. They were single moms. So a lot of my
Yeah,
worry
that must
was
have been
just
hard.
that, about how to support them. It's more of surviving in that sense. But as I said, thankfully, there were some positives coming out of, in terms of, this is all professionally. Personally, there's a lot of other thoughts also going. Of course, the whole thought of the environment and how much difference we are making by just not traveling as much or not consuming that much. There are positive signs that are coming out, but there are some negatives as well. A lot more plastics are coming back into the market because of use and throw and so-called safety and stuff like that. There are a lot of worries and not so worries happening on the side. But professionally, yes, with Goli Soda, that worry about how to sustain our people was bothering us, and somehow we all worked as a team, as a family, and we were able to sustain, and thankfully we had some essentials and we kept things going. But that kept me thinking about how suddenly the sales, it might have been a lockdown, but suddenly, say, the sales of our compost pots, or suddenly the sales of our cloth pads or menstrual cup started
Yeah.
going up. And that's when that got me thinking that many people are now probably taking this time to make the shift, either because they've realized the kind of impact we can make on the environment, or maybe people are at home now, they have the time to experiment and try things out. So that's the reason why we started
Yeah.
doing the Sustainability Network. It's just to tell people,
Nice.
before you, we met many founders of Daily Dump, EcoFam, Boon, and other upcycling brands, just for people to understand that you do have other options if you are having doubts about maybe, say, shifting to a cloth pad or a cup. We
Yeah.
are here to help you do that. So that's how this whole thing started.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was my thoughts during this
And
lockdown.
what you said about cloth pads or menstrual cups is exactly what I was saying to another friend the other day as well. People who are working full time outside the house on a
Yeah.
normal cycle, it's going to be hard for them to try and make that switch, because you're always going to be worried, oh, I'm going to be at the office. What sort of access will I have there and all of that. But this whole lockdown period, or where we're working from home, is a great time to experiment with that, like you said. Yeah.
So, did you go through any such? I know you don't need a lockdown to push you to make a certain kind of change, but definitely there's been a lifestyle change for all of us. So, is there any drastic change that has happened while during this lockdown in your lifestyle or at home now?
Um, I would say it's more to do with how I manage time, and I have started going to bed earlier and then waking up earlier than I used to before. So yeah,
For
just to
us, it's
get some extra
definitely
time to myself. Yeah.
For us, it's definitely about cooking more at home. Uh,
Yes.
that is one thing that we've realized. We've been cooking more at home, and we've realized, like, I know when, like, my mother-in-law made dal makhni, it was very good, and after a point we were like, it's so simple to cook these things. It's you think these are some major, some recipes are very difficult to get, but most of the things that we eat out, which are not your typical traditional food at home, but they're
Yeah.
actually quite easy to make. And the great thing about cooking at home, we've also realized you tend to waste less because you put so much. And now that we are cooking, because we've
And
cut
doing the
down on the
dishes.
staff at home, Yeah. So because you're doing the dishes, you're doing the cooking, you're finding more value for the food that you're making right now, what goes into it, the effort. Earlier, if somebody else was cooking for you, you don't see the amount of work that goes into it. So I
Yeah.
think everything, so what somebody actually told me was it's made us more conscious about every action that we do. I think the lockdown has made us that. So even if we are touching a door, we are aware of that action because we want to ensure we go wash our hands after that. Or
Yeah.
even whether we are cooking or cleaning, we are very aware of each of our activity. So I think this lockdown
That's
has
wonderful. Yeah, yeah.
made that kind of impact on most people. So I hope this whole thing will only lead to positives. There are some doubts and worries that we had a conversation with the founder of Green the Map, and his worry was if industries will want to compensate for the time lost and would catch up and go double the speed in, say, manufacturing or any of those things. So he had a different worry saying, are we going to compensate for the lost time once things open up? So there are thoughts about it. I'm just being hopeful. I'm hopeful that uh, we uh, we would consume more local products, local artisans, local businesses, support them. You know, we believe that sustainability is all about that. It's just not about being eco-friendly. It's about providing sustainable income and
Yeah.
jobs. So yeah, so
Yeah.
for the
And
first
the
time, somebody's
other
asking me the question. I'll end up asking the question to everybody else. But yeah, thank you for asking.
the problem, yeah, the other one positive that I've been seeing is a lot more people are doing workshops online, whether it is composting or just sustainable menstruation. So I think now people don't need to get out of their living room
Yeah.
to attend these things. So I think that is a good plus as well. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, Goli Soda's the whole of August, we are going to do a series on sustainable and healthy menstruation. So we have
Nice.
panel discussions and workshops. So we have about 4 events that are happening over the course of August. And that's the other thing. At our store in Chennai, we used to do regular workshops because we felt, especially when we started in 2013, many of the terms or many of the things we did sell at our store, nobody had any clue of what it was. Nobody understood what upcycling was. Nobody knew that one could compost even in an apartment. So that's when the whole we realized the strength of educating people. So we used to have a lot of these workshops at that point. And what we realized it, though we were creating that community, restricting to that geographic area, now that we are now taking our workshops and events online, we are able to reach a
Distance is
worldwide
zero. Yeah.
audience. And in a way, the world has come closer in that sense with people doing talks and workshops, and anybody from anywhere can now listen and participate. So in things, though we are socially distancing in one way, physically,
Yeah.
but I think people are coming closer, or ideas are coming closer through these online. I mean, you and
Yeah.
I now having this
Absolutely.
conversation is
Yeah.
one such
Yeah.
thing. We've
Yes.
communicated so many times over online, but
Email.
we've
Yeah.
not met. I
Yeah.
think, yeah,
So
those are the different things, positives that I believe will be happening, and I hope it continues even after
yeah.
things open up. So thank you so much, Shubh. It was a great chat. As I said,
Pleasure,
nobody asked
Shruti.
me the questions. I was the one asking questions, but it was nice to end this edition with somebody asking me the questions, and it was fun to
My pleasure.
you know to have a brainstorming session like that and exchange ideas. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. And somebody is has commented saying you should do workshops on cloth diapering. We need more parents doing it and not using disposable diapers. We definitely will, because I'm a cloth
Yeah.
diapering parent as well. I
Nice.
think I had to read up so much about it. I was so nervous.
Can write a
Nervous in the
thesis
sense
on
that
it now, I'm sure.
exactly, exactly. And there are so many advantages of that because of hi.
You want to say hi?
Okay. Since we're talking about cloth.
Hi. Would you like to read a page from your mom's book?
Do you want to read something? She just started learning to read. So.
Oh. Okay, so thank you so much for this wonderful conversation, and good luck with your next book, and we hope to have it soon on Goli Soda as well. Thank you so much.
For having me today. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Type yes.
So yes, on cloth diapering workshops, we will definitely have one. We I'll also be blogging about it. It's been on my desktop for a while, the articles that I've been writing, because there's so much to talk about with regards to cloth diapering, because it has various other advantages, not just about for the planet, but even for your child, even for, finally, potty training your child. It's very useful. So, and especially in India, a place like Chennai, where I come from, the weather is so hot during the summer. Cloth diaperings are the best. So we will talk about it, but for we actually had a guest from a brand called A Toddler Thing in our first week of the Sustainability Network. So to start off with, Sonika, you can catch that conversation we had on the Sustainability Network on our YouTube page. It's a good start to understanding cloth diapering and the kind of cloth diapers available in the market. So thank you so much for all of you for watching the Sustainability Network. We'll be back soon with the next edition with some more interesting people and conversations. Until then, good night. Take care. Bye.